This is the Parents in Sport podcast. Amazing guests, honest conversations, topics that matter.
Welcome to the Parents in Sport podcast. I am your host, Gordon MacLelland, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Andrew Guy, who is the father of Great Britain swimmer James. Andrew, thank you for joining us on the show.
You're very welcome. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Now, in today's episode, we're going to discuss sports parenting and specifically Andrew's journey with James, which I'm guessing started at a particularly young age, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, James started swimming at 5 or 6, just at a local club where we wanted him to swim so we could take him on holiday and he'd be safe. We never, ever envisaged that we were going to go on a journey. You know, I used to go and watch him, and if I'm being honest, I never even used to watch him when he was swimming. I was just there with a cup of coffee talking to the rest of the mums. And it started from there, really. Yeah,
fantastic. And you've just had James at home over the last few months, I know for a period of time during the lockdown. And how's it been for obviously having James home as dad, but also the news that things like the Olympics have been postponed? How's that all been for you?
Well, first of all, having him at home has been great. 8 weeks. He's a good boy. We're a good family unit together. We're good fun. We watch movies and just chill out. He's got everything in sight. There's nothing left in the fridge. He's carried on training, and it's been good to have him home. We've not had him home since he was 20. So it's been a good time, not just for me and his mum, for his brother as well, Luke, who's an interim head coach at Crew Flyers. So there's a realisation of that swimming link. So it's been good to have the brothers together, and it's been good to have him at home. The question referenced the Olympics. Initially, he was upset, obviously, because he was looking forward to them, and he was swimming well this year. But because he's had a change of coach late last year, he's now seen it as a real positive to get some real distance and mileage under his belt, some tuition from his head coach at Bath, who is David McNulty, who is, he calls it out, he's straight, and that's great for James. So the realisation of that, he's in a positive place now because he's accepted it. COVID-19, should I say, was more important because at the end of the day, it's only swimming. And he's accepted it and he's moved on. And 8 weeks have passed. He's gone back down to Bath, yesterday. And he's actually got back in the water today. So he's got a 10-week period of training and then he's got a couple of weeks off. So things have started moving. But with the Olympics, yeah, he was a little bit upset at the beginning, but now he's accepted it and he's moved on and he's looking forward to it happening next year.
Yeah, fantastic. And you already alluded to me when we were talking, off the show that you've been really impressed by the support that James has received during the lockdown. And I'm guessing that just reassures you as a parent as well. It makes you feel better.
Well, obviously he's not been home since he was 20. So I don't get to see what happens day in and day out. He'll obviously speak to us on a regular basis from Bath and say, yeah, I had a good training session today, Dad, everything's cool. The fridge is full and this is where we are. But to have him at home and see the number of calls he gets with his team, the coaching sessions, the strength and conditioning sessions, speaking to his psychologist, speaking to his nutritionist, speaking to his head coach, speaking to the head coach of British Swimming, I've got to say, in the 8 weeks, I'm sitting here going, wow, they are a proper unit. They look after their swimmers so well, not just physically, mentally. And for me, that is huge in swimming at any age. But at that elite level now, I was really impressed with British Swimming. They've come so far. James has been on the team since he was 17. He's 25 this year, 8 years. And they are a very, very professional unit. And I was very impressed.
Yeah, that's just fantastic to hear. And I think any parent who's supporting their children, you know, when our children go out and do anything, we just almost want them to be all right, and that we feel confident in the people who are working with them, whatever age that may be, whether it's people when we set off or when they're at James's age now, and that certainly must have been a real positive for you during those sort of difficult times.
Absolutely. They were 100% supportive, communicative. They've looked after him mentally. He's had a few issues since he's been at home, and the support has been enormous. So I'm delighted that he's involved in swimming at that level, but I'm more delighted with and who surrounds him and what support he gets, because that is crucial at the elite level of sport. It's crucial as you're going through sport, but when you get to this certain level, it's even more crucial mentally. And I've been really impressed because I've seen it every day. And it's been fantastic to watch. And I've listened into a couple, and very, very professional. Come a long way, British swimming.
Yeah, fantastic.
A long way.
Yeah,
and that's why they're getting the results they're getting.
Brilliant. I mean, that's great to hear. And I think the bit for all our sort of sports parents out there who maybe obviously not at James's level listening, I'm sure they'll all relate to the fact that, particularly when they hit those teenage years, that the fridge is full and basically the children eat all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you must have some extra money in your pocket now tonight.
Well, he's gone, and we'll halve the food bill. You know, it's great just to sit at the table as a family and have dinner together. And that was the highlight of every day, sitting down at the table and having dinner. Because they'd be busy every day. I'd be working. I'd be doing various things. Come 6:30, we'd all go and sit in the dining room, and we'd have our dinner, and we'd have a bit of fun, and you can't put a price on that.
No.
You can't put a price sitting around the table and just chatting. And the thing about James, which is very rare in sport, and I'll share with you, unless he talks about swimming, we don't talk about it at all. So if he doesn't bring swimming up, we don't mention it at all.
Okay.
Because that's his job.
Yeah.
And if he don't want to talk about it, and to be honest, in the 8 weeks, I bet I can count on one hand how many times we spoke about swimming.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the year, there's nothing really happening except the ISL League. So there hasn't been a need to talk about it. We've just been talking about life things in general, moving forward. He's moved house. He's moved back into Bath. So we've talked about the things what are important at this moment in time. He's got no meets this year, so we haven't needed to talk about that, and he didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So we didn't, and I respect him for that, and that's taken us time to do that, because in sport, all the families want to do is talk about the sport, and who's coming through and what's happening, and the athletes need a time away from it. And I respect James for that, because I was probably one of the worst fathers as he was growing up. I wanted to make sure I was doing everything for him, and probably too much, and definitely too much. But James got through it, and he's done okay out of it.
Yeah,
he's the 1% who does okay. So we want to talk about swimming when he wants to talk about swimming.
Right, it's brilliant that, because you brought in sort of two key topics in there, which is obviously the bane of a lot of sporting parents. And two really important things is that I'm guessing that when James was younger and you were crashing around everywhere and taking him to things, and I'm guessing his brother obviously did other sports as well, perhaps, and was maybe involved. How often were you able to get round that table and have those conversations? Was it difficult? Was it more under pressure? Is that what's made it nice? Or did you always find time away from the sport to sort of have that family unit? How was it back then?
Do you know what? We didn't, if I'm being honest, we didn't have that time, because he was swimming every weekend, and we'd always take him, and he'd always want us to take him, or else I'd take him. Yeah. And something I'll share with you, he probably forced his own brother out of swimming, because everybody expected Luke to be as good as James. And it was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure. And he's involved in swimming, and he's good at coaching. He's He's very professional in his approach, and he's a fantastic speaker, how he coaches. And he's got a lot of good stuff in his head. And he's learnt that through being around James and all the swimming community. But as James was growing up, we didn't have that time around the table because we were always swimming. And if there was one thing I would share with other families, I would say, when the kids are younger, make sure you get that time because it's only swimming. It's only swimming. Yeah. And only a very small percentage are going to get to that top level. Yeah. Less than 1%. Yeah. Less than 1%. So at the time.
And that's the same across all sports, isn't it? We talk to parents that, you know, it's really important that you do at some point in your week, in terms of balancing out siblings, relationships, have that time to at least have that discussion away from sport and all round together. And it's not easy. It's a perfect world, as you say. Well, you know, one thing, you know, my son's in a Category 1 football academy, and one of the big things that we've enjoyed during the period is the fact that we've had Sunday lunch at the right time. You know, having a glass of wine at Sunday lunch and sitting having Sunday lunch without one of us not being in the same county or driving somewhere else or coming back. And we've I mean, mine are only 10 and 8, so we're well back from you and James. But just like you said, it has been so valuable and so special. We're really pleased that it's reinforced that point that you're saying, that it's such an important thing to still try and do.
Yeah, and get him involved in all sports. I mean, it was different for James. When he was younger, he did Kung Fu and he did gymnastics. And the gymnastic coach said to him, look, you're going to be too big. When he was about 6 or 7, he said, you're going to be too big. Don't do gymnastics. So James said, look, what shall I do, Dad? Kung Fu. I said, well, you're better at swimming. They're on the same night. It's a bit of a rush. You make a choice. And we chose swimming. And it was the right choice because he couldn't have done gymnastics. He was going to be too big, 6'3". It's way too big. And it just so happened his Kung Fu coach changed. And when he went back, it was a lady. He didn't like her. So he was forced down the swimming route through his own choice. Yeah. And it was the right route. But I would say to other friends, try everything. Go and enjoy and get your kids to do everything. Don't miss out because you're obsessing about swimming and what other parents are saying. Just go and enjoy yourself because it's only swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's really valuable advice there, Andrew, and it very much aligns with our messages with parents of younger children, that we should, where possible, be trying lots and lots of different sports and enjoying it, because there's so much crossover. There's so many skills can be learnt from participating in all those sports. And as you say, you know, by throwing our eggs all into one basket at an early age, not only do we run the risk of all the overuse injuries and the burnout and the boredom and the pressure and all those things, but actually even research is suggesting in the sporting world now that those children who did lots of multi-sports are often overtaking their early specialising peers come the teenage years, because they've just got far more about them than just being limited in one field.
Yeah, well, it opens the mind. It makes mentally them stronger. They've got a different visualization of what they're about to achieve, and it makes them a better athlete. And I've always said to lots of parents, if you can make your swimmer a better athlete, they're going to be a better swimmer. Treat them as an athlete first, because athletes can do anything. Don't just treat them as a swimmer. And it's like my biggest mistake. I would always introduce James. Hi, everybody. This is James. He's a swimmer. Yeah. He was 10 years of age. He wasn't. He was my son. Yeah. That was it. And I did that for years. A massive mistake. And people still do it to me now. Hi, this is David. He's a swimmer. And I'm thinking, that's what I did. I never say anything because it's not for me to say. But I did exactly the same. And I see so many things going on now in the swimming world, being involved in a swimming club. And I try and help as many people as I can, especially the parents who have got the kids who are specialising in one event at 9 years of age.
Yeah, madness, isn't it? And Andrew, you know, from my point of view and the listeners in this, I really admire your honesty and the way you've reflected on you know how you did it, because there's no manual for this, and we all we all do our best because we think that's the best way to go about it, and we all reflect and think, oh, I could have done that differently. And actually what you're saying to parents there, and the parents of younger children, is that your children are your children. They're not commodities. They're not defined by their athletic prowess or their athletic achievement. And it's a really important message to get across, isn't it, to parents setting out on these journeys.
Do you know, I never realised how much support James would need as a swimmer, because it's huge. It's not like playing for a football team, because 11 players on a pitch, you can have a bad game and you can still win. In swimming, you have a bad swim and you're not going to win the race. So he would need lots and lots of valuable time, support, energy, positivity, just sitting down and consoling him after a bad swim. And he went backwards for 3 years when he was younger. And then he came out of that and swam amazing. And everybody said, oh, he's so fast, he's so fast. He's only so fast because he went through the 3 years of badness.
Yeah.
That's what taught him. That's what made him mentally strong. Most kids would have quit.
Yeah.
3 years of going backwards. But because we were a unity as a family and we had these discussions, and we always looked at the bigger picture, the longer journey, because swimming's a journey. We never looked at the short picture. It was always the bigger picture. And he got through it. And as a 16, 17-year-old, he's probably one of the best in the world. But it's because of all the bad times and the roadmap he created where he'd gone backwards and he hadn't grown. And he learned from it. But we could communicate that, because in swimming, when he was younger, I actually saw something that I thought, you know what? Every kid says, I want to be a footballer. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to do this. But when James did it and he was swimming at 11 years of age, I honestly believed him. I thought, this kid is good enough to be a world champion. And it wasn't because he was fast. It was because of his work ethic when he trained. It never changed.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And all his coaches, and as I'm writing in the book, I've ranked all the coaches, and they've all said the same thing. It's the way you worked.
Yeah.
And that has got to be a huge positive for all the swimmers out there and all the athletes.
Yeah, and it's so amazing that you're sharing these sort of real life stories around this, because again, you know, when we talk to parents, or we're talking to parents now and trying to best support them, you know, the fact that sport is a long-term journey, as you alluded to, and there's different reasons why some people are ahead at different ages, and that we shouldn't, you know, be making comparisons at the age of 11, and we shouldn't be getting too caught up in a bad performance at the under 13 regional championships when actually they don't really mean that much in the bigger picture. But the key thing is, and you've hit the nail on the head here, is when we're trying to support parents now, it's actually those key character skills that are actually going to give you any chance of being successful. And as you say there's so many now who would not have coped with the bad 3 years that James went through.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done.
They would have just dropped it because if it would have just been too difficult. Yeah, actually, surely our role as parents is we can't always control what happens in the pool or the outcomes of football matches, but we can try and instill some of these values around hard work, determination, some of these things. And surely that should be our focus. And clearly that worked for you during that time, that you took the bigger picture and were looking more at encouraging James's attitude.
Well, for me, you know, he's had some amazing coaches. I'm not a swim coach. I purposely stayed away from coaching because that's not my remit, and I wanted him to be coached properly, and he has been coached properly. But he's a great listener. He had to listen to his coaches, and he had that swimming relationship where whatever they said, he would go and do it. And the thing with James, in the main sets, and I've seen it so many times now, when they do main sets at clubs, a lot of the swimmers will swim the last 200 or the last 100 really well. James would try and swim all 10 of them really well. So he'd learn how to cope with pressure in the race. He'd learn to swim when he was tired, how to race when he was tired, mentally, instead of just saving himself for the last swim and winning and beating everybody on the last swim. And we talked about it. We talked about the bigger picture. We talked about, mentally being fitter aerobically and understanding, when you're tired, you've got to be able to push yourself, son, and understanding that. And don't worry if you're going to get beat for the next 6 months, because when you're 12 and 13, nobody's going to remember that.
No.
When you're 18, you're all going to race each other. That's when it's going to count. And as we got him to 16, 17, 18, well, his medals speak for himself. Yeah. He won the world at 19. Only Phelps and Ian Thorpe have done that.
Yeah.
And to be in that group is incredible. But listen, he went through the journey of the difficult times, everybody beating him. But we walked him through it. We spoke about things. We shared. He cried. I cried when he was getting beat because we knew he could be better. But we had to get through that time. And we got through it. And he got through the other end of it. And once he got through the other end of it, there was no stopping him. But he had to go through the bad road to get to the good road.
Yeah,
and a lot of people stop on the bad road.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not equipped with some of those character skills, you never come out of those dips. We know the sporting journey is full of ups and downs, and actually, it's more about your key character traits that get you out of those troughs. If you haven't got those, you're gonna struggle, even if you've got all the ability in the world.
Yeah. It was funny because we had a podcast the other night, and somebody asked James who was his hero, and he said Ryan Lochte and Michael Phelps and people like this. He said I had pictures on my walls. He said, and I was privileged to race them in the 2016 Olympics and 2015 Worlds. He said, and when I won the Worlds, Ryan Lochte was beside me, and one of the parents said, "It's crazy, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, because on my wall in my son's bedroom is all the pictures of James. And I thought, wow, what a circle. Yeah. I said, so how old's your son? He said 15. Well, James is 25. If your son gets to make the British team and he's 22, James will be 32. It might race him. But for James to race his idols is rare, and I just think that was justice for what he went through.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you make your own luck, but you still got to work hard every day in sport, mentally, physically. You've got to be a good person, and you've got to be able to listen. You've got to be able to listen when you're young and not talk. And James is great at listening. Yeah. And he's taught him a lot of things. Swimming, he's taught him how to be a young man outside of the pool. Yeah. When he's about with different people, when he's in London with business people through his agent, he's learnt how to be professional, and that's through the swimming and racing for sure.
Yeah, and I think that sport still provides young people of today this amazing opportunity to equip themselves with all of those life skills in probably some of the safest environments to do it. And I always find it, parents will often say to me, when they're doing this work, they'll say, Gordon, how do I know if it's been worth it? And I had to think long and hard about that, because obviously people have invested lots of time, emotion, money, and everything else that's gone with it. And I came to the conclusion that whenever I get asked that now, it's been worth it if your child is a great human being who is equipped with all the life skills that even if the sport didn't work out, they could go into whatever walk of life that they go into and be really well equipped to deal with what life throws at them. And I think if sport creates that opportunity for individuals, then it's all been worth it then. There's no negative attached to it if that's the sort of attitude you have around it. And actually, probably the outcomes will take care of themselves anyway at that stage.
Do you know, Gordon, whether they make the club championships or the counties or the regionals, and that's the level they get to, that's their Olympics. They've done amazing. To get to regionals or counties or win something at your club is fantastic. And if they get to that level, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The success, it's success for everybody, isn't it? Everybody's on their own individual journey. Everybody's got different levels of potential, whatever else. We've just got to probably recognise that as parents, that our children are unique and they're on their journey, and what their priorities are will be different to other people and maybe very different to what we want and expect. And that probably evolves all the time, doesn't it, Andrew? Throughout the journey, there'll be
it
times.
Does.
Yeah.
It does. And a common fault in the swimming world is lots of parents and swimmers focus on everybody else's journey instead of their own. And if they were to take anything away from any of these podcasts, especially in swimming, it would be to focus on your own journey and not look at anybody else. And that's very difficult to do, because when you're racing people every week, week in, week out, and people are beating you, you tend to look at what they're doing. And that's the wrong way to do it. Just look at your own journey and focus on your own skills and attributes and try and develop them. And if you can do that, you'll have a better chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such valuable advice and support to all sports parents across all sports. So going back to that really difficult time, and the time where James was struggling and there were lots of tears, and I'm guessing at that stage younger brother also stopped. What age did he stop?
So Luke stopped at about 14.
Yeah, so
he was under too much pressure.
Yeah, so all around that time was obviously a challenging time for you as dad and your approach. How did you get through it? Was it lots of conversation? Was it well thought out? Did you do it with your heart, with your head? How did you get there in the end?
Well, we sat down and discussed things as a family. James would cry a lot because he wouldn't make finals what he'd previously won the year before. And we just explained to him, and it was very hard when he was 13, 14, because he's still a kid. Very hard. But we had to try and get him to understand it's a bigger picture. But he never ever lost the love for swimming and racing. And that helped me. James actually helped the family because he never lost that desire.
Yeah.
Even in the tough times, and this is quite rare, Gordon. In the tough times, I'd go up to his bedroom when he'd had a shocking weekend racing, and he'd still be watching all the World Championships and the Olympics on his iPad. He never changed. No. He still had that DNA of being a swimmer was in James, even through the difficult times. So he was a little bit different because he kind of got his mum and dad through it, because his work ethic never changed. He never moaned. He just kept going, getting beat, kept training. And we started a bit of a home program at home where we did a bit of a few more exercises. My background was PE, so I could help him. We got onto a nutrition diet, and we could see little glimpses of the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And that kept us going. But we had plenty of discussions around the table, plenty of tears, not just from James, from mum and dad and in Luke. Yeah. But he probably helped us get through it because he never ever lost that desire. And he's still got it today. Even when he has a bad race, he's got that ability now to shunt it out of his brain and move on. And that's what he's good at. Yeah. So a very difficult time for 3 years for the family. And we've moved 250 miles away. So from Cheshire all the way to Somerset to give James this opportunity. Yeah. And he was going through this tough time, and we thought, shall we move back and pull him out of Millfield? And it just wasn't the right thing. We just knew to keep him at Millfield, because Millfield, with all due respect, made him the swimmer he is today. Yeah. His two coaches were amazing, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude for what they did. Yeah. And they got him through it.
It's a great setup, isn't it, Andrew? I know the school well, and I was there last year and went and had a wander around with the sports department, and I went into the swimming pool in the afternoon when the training was going on. I was absolutely blown away by the environment, the attitude of the swimmers, the coaches, how open people were. I can see why you hold it in such high regard. It's certainly a very special place for that.
As a youth swimmer and then moved to senior, that transition, I think they did an amazing job with James. Amazing. And don't get me wrong, he put the work in, but they supported him mentally as well. Yeah. They coached him. mentally. And you just can't buy that. But the swimmer's got to have that ability to be able to take that on board, and James did. But Milford was fantastic with him. Fantastic. Yeah.
I think one thing that I think always surprises us sometimes, and as parents, is our children's sometimes ability to bounce back. They bounce back a lot quicker than we do, don't they? You know, I think I think of some of the bad days you have watching sport, and you're just gutted. You've got that horrible feeling in your stomach as a parent because you want your child to do well, and then actually they'll say, "What's for tea tonight?" and you're sat there stewing on it, and they're actually all right and already moved on to the next thing.
They're resilient. Kids today are resilient, and even more so in sport in general. They're resilient. They're tough physically. They're tough mentally. They deal with loss very quickly, and they move on.
Yeah, I think you're talking about traits of sports people who do well, don't you? Know, if your children work really hard and have some of their resilience traits and are able to communicate well and adapt to different environments and be creative and all those skills that maybe have been lost a little bit. I mean, you've got your PE background. I'm a PE teacher by trade as well, and an educational background. And I think there's certainly elements of the way children are today around media and computers that some of those traits don't seem quite as prevalent as they used to. I think it's more hard to tease it out. I think it can be done. I think it's not easy, but I think those children that display those now are actually really, really well equipped to thrive. I think that it's going back to those character skills that we talked about earlier.
You know, when I was growing up, and I'm a little bit older than you, in them days you called it out. Now you can't call it out. You have to have that more professional PC approach. Whereas in my day, you just got it called out.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even in today's day, we just need to call it out and move it forward and get them to understand that's the situation, that's how we're going to deal with it, and that's how we're going to move on. And for James, swimming and being an athlete and all that environment for the last 18 years has developed him as a person. He is the person who he is because of the swimming.
Yeah.
You know, and it's helped him so much in life.
Yeah.
In the way he is with people, how he understands people, how he gets on, his networking. It's just taught him so much being in sport. And however long he goes for, he's hoping to do another couple of Olympics. Whether he does that or not, that's James's choice, and if his body can take it. But it's helped him so much in life as a person.
Yeah.
And Luke.
Yeah.
And Luke. Being in sport has definitely developed my two boys into the men they are today.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I think whatever they've done, as you say, when we talked about earlier about no matter what you end up in, sports being the vehicle there to churn out two very wonderful young men in your case. And actually during the process, that maybe we need to spend a bit more emphasis as parents on looking after that side of it in our children and letting the sporting journey pan out as it does.
Yeah. You know, we did a podcast last night with a swimming club down in the south, and the coach texted me after and said, "Can't believe how normal James is." I said, "Well, what did you expect? He's just a normal lad. He's like the boy from next door. It's no different." No. It just so happens he's been able to swim pretty fast in a few races. He's still James Guy. He's just a normal bloke. Yeah. And I had some of the parents tweeting me later saying, "We just can't believe how he was with our 10-year-olds." I went, "Well, he used to be a 10-year-old. Yeah. He'll know where they've been." You know, it doesn't cost anything to do a podcast with a swimming club and give back.
No, absolutely not. And I think that certainly comes across tonight in the conversation, that, you know, how grounded he certainly is, and what a solid upbringing he had, and credit to you and your wife and all the sort of hard work you've done in helping him get to that stage. Do you think, as the journey was developing, from maybe how you threw yourself into a sports journey early on, that you've changed your approach? So maybe there were some things that you did when he set out that you focused on sort of evolved and changed? I'm thinking about what you said at the beginning of the talk about how it's now on James's terms if he brings up swimming. I'm guessing that wasn't always the case when he was setting out when it was 9 and 10, because we can't help ourselves as parents. Has that journey evolved for you? Have you changed approaches at different times?
Oh yeah, I've changed 100%. Yeah, and I needed to. I've backed off. He's a young man, and he's got his own career, and I still support him. We still talk daily. He'll FaceTime me once a day, but we won't talk about swimming. We'll talk about something else. Yeah, because swimming's not on the agenda now. But as them years have developed over the last probably 5 or 6 years, Dad's taken a massive back step because it's James's career. I'm just there to support James.
Yeah,
and if he needs his dad in swimming, he'll ask me. Otherwise, I'm James's life coach, as my father was my life coach. So he deals with everything with swimming. He does a really good job of it. And if he needs to ask me anything, he will do. Otherwise, I do not say anything to him about assisting him, because he's a young man. He's 25 nearly. If he needs me, he'll come to me and Mum. And he often does about different things. He does some swim camps, and we do a family swim camp. And I set it up for him. He just turns up, and I help him on stuff like that. But it's definitely evolved, Gordon, yeah. And I backed off. And while he was younger, I had huge involvement, probably too much. But we got through it. We got through it well. And he's loving the journey now. He loved it then. It was a little bit different then at 10 and 11 and 12. But he's in control of it 100% himself now. And he needs to be, because that will develop him as an athlete, as a swimmer, and as a parent. When he was with me, it was just about the swimming.
Yeah.
Now it's an athlete first, swimmer second, and young man third.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating, and obviously you were massively passionate. You see your passion and enthusiasm even talking to you tonight, which is great, because I'm as passionate as you are with my own children. But we often sort of forget the wider family network. So obviously you were with James, and you had your way of doing things over the years. Was your wife or James's brother a really good foil to that? Were they very different in how they saw the sporting journey, in terms of they were able to provide some of the things that you maybe didn't?
You know what? They were very supportive. And because we did the things the way I led them, rightly or wrongly, besides the 3 years of where he struggled, all the other years were great. So it was kind of working. So we didn't have to do lots of changes. We've had a good journey.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he'd go and swim badly and still win. So we wouldn't have the normal journey where kids are good at regionals and for years and years and not do anything. He had 3 bad years. But we knew how to deal with that after about 15 or 16 months. We learned how to deal with it. So we put a plan in place, and we stuck to the plan. And we stuck to that plan till he was 20 years of age.
Yeah.
We had his nutrition and diet on the fridge, and we stuck to that. And even to this day now, James is a great eater, but when it comes to training, he eats 100% clean.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had 8 weeks off. How many beers has he had? But let me tell you, none.
Yeah.
He wouldn't ever think of having a beer at home, because he's still an athlete and training. Now, I'm sure there's some swimmers and athletes having a few beers because there's nothing happening this year. But for James, he just won't do that because it's not in his makeup. Yeah. When he gets his 4 weeks off or his 2 weeks off, later on in summer, he might go out with a few lads and have a few beers.
Yeah.
But until he's told, he just won't do that. So that discipline, which we instilled when he was younger, he's just continued it. And it works for him. He likes to be in full control of that now, and he is. But he controls it. He controls his lifestyle.
Yeah.
And but he's had good grounding.
Yeah.
Good grounding as a family, as a wider group of family. All the family are into into the swimming and watching him. He's got a cousin who's the chairman at Burnley Football Club, so we've got a link to football as well. He comes and watches, and everybody watches James. Yeah, because he's done great. And even when he did badly and swam badly, they still all came and watched him and supported him. So he's got a good family unit around him, a good network of family, supportive, and now he's in control of it all himself.
Yeah. And tell us, Andrew, as we sort of draw to the end of this conversation, just conscious of time, last couple of questions, I guess. Tell us, what did it feel like, Dad, James winning an Olympic medal as he set off down the pool? Were you on your feet? Were you trying to stay calm? Were you all over it? What was it like?
Yeah, I was in the pool racing with him.
Yeah,
it was because he finished 4th and 5th in the individuals. I said to him, son, you have got to go. And he was in a bad way. He'd gone in ranked number 1 in the world and finished 4th in his event, missed the medal. I'll never forget it. Came up to see his parents in the crowd, crying, with 200 people behind him, waiting for his signature. He signed every one while he was crying.
Wow.
We were sat in the stands, Mum, Dad and Luke, and we were all crying. The following day, he had the 4x2 free relay. I said, son, you got to clean that mind and go back down there and get a medal. We haven't come for no medals. And he went and they swam amazing, the 4 boys, which is a great team. And there'll be one to watch in the Olympics next year. If he'd have swam the speed he swam in the relay, he'd have won the Olympic gold in the individual. And that's the understanding. And that's his next journey. He's got to learn to be able to do that. And that's where he's at. But the Olympics were crazy. For him to race his idol, Michael Phelps, was unbelievable. I haven't got any hair on my head, but the few hairs I did, they stood up. But we had a great time. And for me, that was always his dream, to swim in the Olympics and get a medal. He's got 2 silvers, he's a world champion, and you'll never be able to take that off him. No. He'll always be a world champion. And that's crazy. From the journey of being an 8-year-old to say, you know what? I became a world champion. Wow. So, yeah, extremely proud and loved every minute.
Fantastic. What a fantastic sort of story to sort of finish the episode there, Andrew. And I bet it was just amazing, the emotion of all of that and how you've described it, and your honesty tonight in this episode and helping support parents who are going through some of the things that you've gone through. I can't thank you enough for being
Very
so
welcome.
honest and sharing those experiences with us. So thanks for coming on to the show, Andrew.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for listening. Check us out at parentsinsport.co.uk.